We are here today outside the British government's so-called Global Conference on Media Freedom to show our solidarity with journalist and WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who is today languishing in Belmarsh prison at the behest of the British government. Julian Assange, according to the United Nations torture, has been tortured by the British government for exposing US war. The same British government that the UN says tortures journalists is today launching a campaign to defend media freedom. The campaign will be launched by the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, who has vowed to bundle journalist Julian Assange off to the US to face a possible 175 years imprisonment, torture and death for his journalism. This conference on defending media freedom will not defend journalist Assange. It will not even mention him. It will not praise him for exposing the cold-blooded, targeted murder of journalists in Iraq by US forces. And it will not hold accountable the Israeli government, which routinely targets and kills Palestinian journalists. More than 100 Palestinian journalists have been killed by Israeli occupation forces since 1972. This will not be held at conference. Instead, the conference has invited as VIP speaker the general manager of Al Arabiya news channel, the Saudi royal family's personal propaganda mouthpiece. During Bonso MBS's 2017 purge of the royal family, where 500 Saudi princes were abducted and forced to hand over hundreds of billions of dollars to MBS to help consolidate his power within the mafia family, MBS personally took over 60% of Al Arabiya from another prince. He then used Al Arabiya as his instrument to whitewash the abduction and brutal execution of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi embassy in Turkey. Under direct orders from MBS, Khashoggi was dismembered with a bone saw while he screamed in agony. The audio recording of this gruesome murder revealed MBS's hit squad telling embassy staff to put on headphones with loud music to drown out the unbearable screams of the journalist as his limbs were sawn off. Al Arabiya dutifully played its part in trying to cover up this heinous crime. Not only has Jeremy Hunt invited these criminal mouthpieces to today's conference on media freedom, but at the same time, he has banned journalists he does not agree with, like RT and Sputnik, from attending the conference, saying they spread disinformation. Even George Orwell could not have predicted this reality of doublespeak, where meanings are reversed. A conference on media freedom is in reality a conference to gag and subvert the media to stay subservient to empire.
We are also here today to show our solidarity with whistleblowers to leak documents cataloguing US war crimes. She is imprisoned and has been brutally tortured by the United States. In 2010, Private Manning leaked 750,000 confidential documents detailing US war crimes in Afghanistan and Iraq, abuses in Guantanamo Bay, and the diplomatic cables to Julian Assange to publish on the WikiLeaks website. The documents were also published by WikiLeaks partners, the New York Times, The Guardian, Der Spiegel, and El País. Manning was subsequently arrested after she confided to an online acquaintance who reported her to the army. She was sentenced to 35 years in prison under the Espionage Act, even though she wasn't a spy, but a whistleblower revealing US war crimes. In prison, she was tortured using classic CIA interrogation methods to coerce her to implicate Julian Assange as a conspirator in the leaking of military files. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture formally accused the US government of cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment towards her. Over 250 leading US legal scholars wrote open letters outrage at Manning's torture. In the letter, they describe Manning's ordeal. Manning has been confined to his cell for 23 hours a day. During his one remaining hour, he can walk in circles in another room, with no other prisoners present. He is not allowed to doze off or relax during the day, but must answer the question, "Are you okay?" verbally and in the affirmative every 5 minutes. At night, he is awakened to be asked again, "Are you okay?" every time he turns his back to the cell door or covers his head with a blanket so that the guards cannot see his face. He was forced to sleep naked in front of his cell. Despite the torture, she refused to implicate Assange. Eventually, after 7 years imprisonment, her sentence was commuted in January 2017. In February 2019, she was again imprisoned for refusing to testify against WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. She is placed in solitary confinement for 22 hours. Today, she is still caged in the US. In addition to her imprisonment, she is now being extorted $500 a day, every day she does not cooperate with the persecution of Assange. The extortion has actually now increased to $1,000 a day. She has already lost her home, rendered homeless. We are here to demand her immediate and unconditional freedom. Free Chelsea Manning.
Free Chelsea Manning!
For publishing evidence on US war crimes, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been labeled a terrorist by prominent politicians in the United States government, with calls for a drone strike against him. A secret indictment was issued by the US for his extradition, forcing Assange to seek asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Rafael Correa, his anti-imperialist government granted Assange asylum, and Assange remained in the embassy of Ecuador for almost 7 years. After Correa's 3 successful terms as president of Ecuador ended, Moreno took over in 2017. He took the country in a very different path, one of appeasing the United States. After U.S. Vice President Mike Pence's visit to Ecuador, Moreno launched a security deal with the United States, including buying weapons and sharing intelligence. The United States ensured the IMF approved a $4.2 billion loan to Ecuador in early 2019, and in return Moreno rescinded Assange's asylum and invited the British Met Police to enter the Ecuadorian embassy to arrest Assange on the 11th of April 2019, ready for extradition to the United States. The United States extradition lists 18 charges, 17 of which are under the First World War era Espionage Act, carrying 175 years in prison. The Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, rather than challenge such a ridiculous charge sheet, which could see Assange tortured and killed in America, has rubber-stamped the extradition request. The American Civil Liberties Union has said that any prosecution by the United States of Mr. Assange for WikiLeaks publishing operations would be unprecedented and unconstitutional, and will open the door to criminal investigations of other news organizations. Moreover, prosecuting a foreign publisher for violating U.S. secrecy laws will set an especially dangerous precedent for United States journalists who routinely violate foreign secrecy laws to deliver information vital to the public's interest. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture, Niels Melzer, after visit Assange in Belmarsh prison on the 31st of May 2019, wrote a damning report on Assange's treatment. Extract from it reads, "The evidence is overwhelming and clear. Mr. Assange has been deliberately exposed for a period of several years to progressive severe forms of cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment. The cumulative effects of which can only be described as psychological torture. In 20 years of work with victims of war, violence, and political persecution, I have never seen a group of democratic states ganging up to deliberately isolate, demonize, and abuse a single individual for such a long time, and with so little regard for human dignity and human.
Julian Assange wrote a letter from Belmarsh prison on 13th May 2019 to his supporters. It reads, "I have been isolated from all ability to prepare to defend myself. No laptop, no internet, ever, no computer, no library so far. But even if I get access, it will be just for half an hour with everyone else once a week. Just 2 visits a month, and it takes weeks to get someone on the call list and a catch-22 in getting their details to be security screened. Then all calls, except lawyers, are recorded, and calls are meant 10 minutes and in a limited 30-minute window each day, in which all prisoners compete for the code. And the credit is just a few pounds a week, and no one can call in. The other side, a superpower that has been preparing for 9 years with hundreds of people and untold millions to spend on the case. I am just senseless, and I'm counting on you and others of good characters to save my life. I am unbroken, albeit literally, surrounded by murderers, but the days when I could read and speak and organize are over until I am free. Everyone else must take my place. The U.S. government, or rather, those regrettable elements in it that hate truth, liberty, and justice, want to cheat their way into my extradition and death rather than letting the public hear the truth, for which I have won the highest awards in journalism and have been nominated 7 times for the Nobel Prize. Truth, ultimately, is all we have. Signed, Julian Assange. Shame on you! Shame on the British government! Shame on the British government! Shame on the British government! Shame on you! Shame on you!
Julian Assange's extradition hearing date is set for February next year, 2020. We are here to say no extradition to the United States, no rendition to the United States, and we demand Julian Assange is immediate and unconditional release. Free Julian Assange, no extradition to the United States. Free Chelsea Manning. Telling the truth is not a crime.